Hello everyone, welcome to our weekly cybersecurity news roundup. In this video, we'll be discussing the latest updates on the biggest cybersecurity incidents, data breaches, and emerging threats from the past week. From ransomware attacks to vulnerability disclosures, we've got you covered with all the important news and analysis you need to stay informed and protected. So sit back and let's dive into the world of cybersecurity. Google uncovers 18 severe security vulnerabilities in Samsung Exynos chips. Are you using a Samsung, Vivo, or Google Android phone? You might want to pay attention to this. Google is calling attention to a set of severe security vulnerabilities in Samsung's Exynos chip. 18 zero-day vulnerabilities affect a wide range of Android smartphones from Samsung, Vivo, Google, wearables using the Exynos W920 chipset, and vehicles equipped with the Exynos Auto T5123 chipset. And it's not just any vulnerabilities. 4 of the 18 flaws make it possible for a threat actor to achieve internet to Samsung, Vivo, and Google as well as wearable devices in late 2022 and early 2023. In other words, someone can remotely compromise your phone with no user interaction required. While Pixel 6 and 7 handsets have already received a fix as part of the March 23 update, patches for other devices are expected to vary depending on the manufacturer's timeline. Until then, users are recommended to switch off Wi-Fi calling and voice over LTE in their device settings to remove the exploitation risk of these vulnerabilities. These attacks might sound prohibitive to execute, but to the contrary, they are very well within reach of skilled attackers who can quickly devise an operational exploit to breach affected devices silently and remotely. Microsoft rolls out patches for 80 new security flaws, 2 under active attack. Microsoft's Patch Tuesday update for March 23 brings with its remediation for a set of 80 security flaws, 8 of which are rated critical, 71 are rated important, and 1 is rated moderate in severity. Of particular concern are the 2 vulnerabilities that have come under active attack, including a Microsoft Outlook privilege escalation flaw and the Windows Smart Screen security feature bypass. The Outlook flaw can be triggered by a specially crafted email that can lead to exploitation without requiring any user interaction and even before the message is viewed in the preview pane. The Windows Smart Screen security bypass flaw, on the other hand, concerns a security bypass flaw that could be exploited to evade mark of the web protections when opening untrusted files downloaded from the internet. This is a reminder of the importance of staying vigilant when it comes to email and downloading files from the internet. Make sure to exercise caution and only open files from trusted sources. In response to these vulnerabilities, the US Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency CISA has added the 2 flaws to the known exploited vulnerabilities catalog and announced a new pilot program that aims to warn critical infrastructure entities about vulnerabilities commonly associated with known ransomware exploitation. Now let's look into the Microsoft Outlook privilege escalation flaw in attack. Microsoft fixes Outlook zero-day used by Russian hackers since April 2022. A hacking group linked to Russia's military intelligence service GRU used this vulnerability to target fewer than 15 government, military, energy, and transportation organizations between mid-April and December 2022. The group, known as APT28, Strontium, Sednet, Sofassi, or Fancy Bear, sent malicious Outlook notes and tasks to steal NTLM hashes via NTLM negotiation requests. These stolen credentials were used to gain lateral access within the victim's network and change Outlook mailbox folder permissions, allowing for email exfiltration for specific accounts. Microsoft has released a security advisory stating that the vulnerability is a critical Outlook elevation of privileged security flaw that can be exploited without user interaction in low complexity attacks. Threat actors can exploit it by sending messages with extended MAPI properties containing UNC paths to an SMB share under their control. To mitigate this vulnerability, Microsoft recommends immediate patching the CVE or adding users to the protected user group in Active Directory and blocking outbound SMB. The company also released a PowerShell script to help admins check if any users in their Exchange environment have been targeted using this Outlook vulnerability. Zero-day vulnerability in the Fortra Go Anywhere MFT. The zero-day vulnerability in the Fortra Go Anywhere secure file transfer platform led to data breaches in several organizations, including Rubrik and Hitachi Energy. Let's look into the news about this and also discuss the Glop ransomware gang's involvement in these attacks and how they are exploited the stolen data. Let's start with the news about Rubrik, a cloud data management service that confirmed its data was stolen using a zero-day vulnerability in the Fortra Go Anywhere secure file transfer platform. Rubrik's CISO disclosed that the company was the victim of a large-scale attack against Go Anywhere MFT devices worldwide. However, the breach was contained in a non-production IT testing environment and no customer data was impacted. The threat actors did not spread laterally to the internal systems, and the test environment was taken offline to prevent further intrusions. Moving on to the news about Hitachi Energy, which also suffered a data breach after the Glop ransomware gang exploited the same zero-day vulnerability in the Fortra Go Anywhere MFT. Hitachi Energy responded to the incident immediately, disconnected the impacted system, and initiated an internal investigation to determine the breach's impact. All affected employees, applicable data protection authorities, and law enforcement agencies have been informed of the security incident directly by Hitachi. The good news is that Hitachi Energy has no information that neither its network operations nor the security or reliability of customer data has been compromised. Finally, let's talk about the Glop ransomware gang's involvement in these attacks. The group claimed responsibility for the Fortra Go Anywhere attacks and disclosed that they breached 130 organizations to steal data over 10 days. The Glop ransomware gang has begun emailing extortion demands to victims as they added them to their data leak site to apply leverage. The group is exploiting the stolen data to extort companies whose data was stolen using a zero-day vulnerability in the Fortra Go Anywhere MFT secure file sharing solution. The group is demanding ransom payment to not publicly release stolen data. Chinese hackers exploit Fortinet zero-day flaw for cyber espionage attack. According to the threat intelligence firm Mandiant, this activity cluster is part of a broader campaign designed to deploy backdoors onto Fortinet and VMware solutions and maintain persistent access to victims' environments. The malicious operation, tracked under the uncategorized moniker UNC3886, has been described as a Chinese Nexus threat actor with unique capabilities in how they operate on network as well as the tools they utilize in their campaigns. UNC3886 has been observed targeting firewall and virtualization technologies which lack EDR support, with their ability to manipulate firewall firmware and exploit a zero-day, indicating a deeper level of understanding of the such technologies. The attacks mounted by UNC3886 targeted Fortinet's FortiGate, FortiManager, and FortiAnalyzer appliances to deploy two different implants such as ThinCrust and CastleTap. ThinCrust is a Python backdoor capable of executing arbitrary commands as well as reading and writing from and to files on disk. And CastleTap is a newly added payload that beacons out to an actor-controlled server so as to accept incoming instructions that allow it to run commands, fetch payloads, and exfiltrate data from the compromised host. Additionally, the threat actor deployed Virtual Peter and Virtual Pi to establish persistence, allowing for continued access to the hypervisor and the guest machines. It's worth noting that the adversary was previously tied to another intrusion set targeting VMware XC and Linux vCenter servers as part of a hyperjacking campaign designed to drop backdoors. Nation-state group and cybercriminals exploit 3-year-old security flaw to break into US federal entity. In November 2022, a critical security flaw in Progress Telerik was exploited by multiple threat actors, including a nation-state group, to successfully breach a US federal civilian executive branch agency's web server. The disclosure comes from a joint advisory issued by the CISA, FBI, and Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center. The agencies disclosed that the exploitation of the vulnerability allowed malicious actors to execute remote code on the agency's Microsoft Internet Information Services web server. The vulnerability, known as CVE 2019-18935, is a .NET deserialization vulnerability affecting Progress Telerik UI for ASP.NET Ajax that can lead to remote code execution if left unpatched. This CVE, in conjunction with CVE 2017-11317, has been weaponized by a threat actor tracked as praying mantis to infiltrate the networks of public and private organizations in the US. In fact, this CVE was recently added to the known exploited vulnerabilities catalog by CISA. The threat actors leveraged CVE 2019-18935 to upload and execute malicious DLL files masquerading as PNG images via the w3wp.exe process. These DLL artifacts are designed to gather system information, load additional libraries, enumerate files and processes, and exfiltrate the data back to a remote server. In August 2021, another set of attacks was observed, likely mounted by a cybercriminal actor dubbed XE Group. The attacks used similar evasion techniques to sidestep detection and drop and executed reverse shell utilities for unencrypted communication with the command and control domain to drop additional payloads, including an Aspect's web shell for persistent backdoor access. To counter such attacks, organizations are recommended to upgrade their instances of Telerik UI ASP.NET Ajax to the latest version, implement network segmentation, and enforce phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication for accounts that have privileged access. New Hinata botnet could launch massive 3.3 Tbps DDoS attacks. Researchers at Akamai have recently discovered a new malware botnet called Hinata Bot that is targeting Realtek SDK, Huawei routers, and Hadoop Yarn server to recruit devices into DDoS attacks. This botnet can potentially launch massive DDoS attacks with significant power. Hinata Bot is a Go-based variant of the notorious Mirai strain, and it is still in active development. Its operators initially distributed Mirai binaries, and it seems to be exploiting old flaws such as CVE 2014-8361 and CVE 2017-17215. After affecting devices, the malware waits for commands to execute from the command and control server. Hinata Bot is distributed by brute forcing SSH endpoints or using infection scripts and RCE payloads for known vulnerabilities. Even though the new variants of Hinata Bot only feature HTTP and UDP floods, the botnet can potentially perform very powerful distributed denial of service attacks. The HTTP packets generated by Hinata bot range from 484 to 589 bytes, and the UDP packets are particularly large, consisting of null bytes that can overwhelm the target with a large traffic volume. Akamai's analysts benchmarked the botnet in 10-second attacks for both HTTP and UDP. In the case of the HTTP flood, 1,000 devices would generate 2 million requests per second, while 10,000 nodes would take that number of 20,400,000 requests per second and 27 Gbps. With 1,000 nodes, the UDP flood could generate roughly 336 Gbps, while at 10,000 nodes, the attack volume would reach 3.3 Tbps. Hinata botnet is still in development and might implement more exploits and widen its targeting scope in any time. Furthermore, its development is so active that we might see more potent variants circulating in the wild soon. So that's it for this week. Thanks for tuning in to this week's Cyber News Update. Don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with the latest developments in the world of online security. And as always, stay safe and stay secure.